6 years after the 1978 Incredible Hulk TV show was unceremoniously cancelled, it returned for a series of TV movies. The Incredible Hulk Returns, The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, and The Death of the Incredible Hulk. Compared to the show, they're quite different in terms of production and tone. For one, Kenneth Johnson, the producer, director, writer of the series, wasn't involved. And unlike the show, which strove to remain as uncomic booky as possible, the TV movies embraced more comic elements, mainly in the forms of Thor and Daredevil. Yup, it's the original MCU, baby. Okay, maybe not quite, but it's still a monumental moment in superhero history. How do these movies hold up? Do they uphold the quality of the show? And do they provide a satisfactory ending to this version of the character? Let's find out. In The Incredible Hulk Returns, it's been 2 years since Banner last hulked out. He's managed to become a scientist for the Joshua Lambert Institute, working on a gamma transponder, which he hopes can cure him once and for all. You know the drill. Banner reunites with one Donald Blake, someone he knew back in the day, and who sought him for help. After stumbling upon an ancient tomb, he was cursed with the power to summon the mighty Thor, and has the responsibility of helping him earn his way into Valhalla via heroic deeds. Thor was sealed away for his arrogance by, who was it again? Right, it was... Yep, heard you the first time. Yes, we get it. It was Odin. This is the live-action debut of Thor. In the comics, Thor and Blake were the same person, just alter egos. Here, they're very much different people, which is an odd choice. I'll explain why in a minute. Each of the 3 TV movies strongly parallels Banner with another character. Returns uses Blake and Thor. When introduced, Blake talks about Thor like they're part of each other.
I don't know how, but I'm part of this guy. This Thor, and he's part of me.
You are gay.
And when Thor first appears, he immediately starts destroying shit. This mirrors Banner's relationship with Hulk, who is a part of him, and has a propensity to start destroying shit when he appears. However, by making Blake and Thor different people, this parallel doesn't work as cleanly. Rather than 2 men grappling with alter egos of great power they can't control, Blake basically has all the control, as long as he has the hammer. Banner even points this out.
Thor only happens when you call him up, and that's the rock-bottom truth of it. I have no choice. The creature in me is uncontrollable, but you control Thor.
By changing the Thor-Blake dynamic, the movie has to use a forced metaphor to jury-rig it back into something more similar to Hulk and Banner. The movie says they're part of each other, but nothing we see backs this up. They're basically just 2 dudes with a complicated work relationship. It's way clunkier than it needed to be. The writer basically had to solve for a problem he created. So what does the movie accomplish with this parallel? A lot, yet nothing at all. At first, Blake and Thor don't get on. Banner encourages Blake to talk to Thor, to get to know him, so he can better understand their dynamic. By doing so, Blake and Thor become good friends and a stronger team. I'd hazard a guess that this is why the movie made Blake and Thor 2 separate people. It's easier to have them bond if they can just talk to each other. Regardless, this lesson doesn't translate over to Banner. Not once does he consider if trying to understand the Hulk and his perspective might improve their relationship, and maybe even grant him some control. Inherently, this would be different. They can't exactly sit down for a friendly chat.
Oh, screw you, you big green asshole!
And Hulk is made up of Banner's base emotions. He isn't another personality. Yet something could still be done here, even if it's only Banner walking away with a new perspective. But nothing like that happens. In fact, by the time of death, we see that Banner's understanding of the Hulk hasn't changed since the pilot.
Now, the world thinks that I'm dead. But they also think that this creature inside of me is a murderer, and they may someday be right. It's not human. Maybe it's what we were before we became human. Maybe it's the worst in us.
When the metamorphosis happens, I haven't got any control over it. I don't even know what it does. I might have killed you. Maybe I tried to kill somebody last night. Maybe I did kill somebody.
Listen to me, David. David Banner is not a killer.
We're not talking about David Banner.
This part of Banner's character remains steadfastly stagnant. When Thor first appears, he's immediately hostile as fuck. Banner asks to be left alone, and Thor somehow takes this as an insult vile enough to get all up in his business for. Then he accidentally knocks him into some machinery that shocks the shit out of him. He's real lucky Banner's secretly the Hulk. That might have killed a normal person. If Thor's always this reckless, it's a wonder he hasn't accidentally killed someone already. And this isn't the last time a version of Thor will attack someone he doesn't know has superpowers. Seriously, in the Avengers, Thor hammered the shit out of Cap without knowing he was a super soldier, and without knowing anything about vibranium. As far as he knew, he was turning this normal dude into a jelly smear on the ground. Imagine if he had. Things would have gotten real awkward after that. When Banner hulks out, he and Thor go at it. I guess absurd contrivances to get characters to fight has always been a staple of superhero flicks. After this whole mess is over, Banner, for some reason, blames Blake and not Thor.
Everything turned upside down, and it's my fault.
That's right.
I'm taking myself and my problem out of your life, permanently.
What happened last night wasn't Thor's fault. It was yours and yours alone.
David, you're not being fair to me.
2 years this change of mine hasn't occurred. And you know why? Because I've stayed away from people like you. People who start trouble and then run away. This time you're going to help wipe up the milk that you spilled.
Bro, one of these dudes almost manslaughtered you. I'll give you a hint. It was the giant Norse guy having a blonde moment. Maybe Banner just wanted to guilt trip Blake into helping him repair the damage. Well played, but kind of a dick move, and out of character for the kind-hearted Banner. Thor is a very intense individual.
I like you, Blake, but only when you're asleep. It's a joke.
Being trapped as a conscious corpse in a tomb for so long gave Thor a particular perspective on life. He wants to live, to drink, to fight, and to have fun. He wants to experience life to its fullest, because he knows what it's like to have all that stripped away, and to feel trapped. That, coupled with his established arrogance, makes him a man quick to leap before he thinks. Despite how contrived it is, his fight with Hulk is a product of this attitude. It's become Blake's role to rein him in, to temper his propensity for rash action. He's the brains to his brawn, the mind to his matter, the something to his such and such. As a first introduction to the character, it's not half bad. Going into this, I was afraid he'd be a one-dimensional stereotype of what someone thought comic book Thor was like, but he ended up having a surprising amount of depth. The movie was intended to be a backdoor pilot for a Thor series, but that didn't pan out. It totally tracks, given how much screen time is dedicated to Blake and Thor's relationship, where Banner isn't even involved. The movie begins with Banner in a relationship with a fellow scientist named Maggie. The ending puts emphasis on how Banner is forced to leave her, but it falls a little flat because she's hardly in the story, and we don't know anything about her. Besides that she's super horny.
You didn't go into any details, even though I tried all my feminine wiles. Mr. Banyan, this is the woman you love. And she's lonely. And she's also a lot softer in all the right places than that transponder of yours.
Grin, grin, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more.
Banner claims he uses her memory to keep the Hulk at bay. We see this during his nightmare at the start of the movie.
You help me more than I can ever tell you. I use you, your image, for control. I concentrate on you, as the old song goes, and I make it through.
I don't think any love interest has had this kind of impact on Banner, which leads the audience to ask, why? We're given nothing to indicate why she's so special. I can't help but compare her to Elena from the pilot, who had a profound amount of characterization. By the end, the audience cared about her just as much as Banner did. The same can't be said for Maggie. As far as the story's concerned, she's more a plot device than a character in her own right. In The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, Banner is caught up in an assault on a subway train. He's blamed for the crime and arrested. A lawyer, one Matt Murdock,
it's all alliterative,
takes an interest in his case because it might be the key to taking down the dangerous crime lord Wilson Fisk. Banner then learns that Murdock is attorney by day and crime-fighting Daredevil by night. Banner starts the movie in a deep depression. He's tired and worn down by his curse. His persistently friendly and charismatic attitude is gone, replaced by a sullen and bitter one. He doesn't believe he has a future anymore, and just wants to be left alone.
A man like you could have a future in a place like this.
Not a man like me.
He's not interested in getting involved with other people or their issues anymore. This could be a result of what happened in Returns. 2 years without incident, a new love in his life, and his closest chance at a cure yet, all ripped away in a moment's notice. To be riding such a high, only to be punted back to square one, would be enough to send anyone into a depressive spiral. Banner travels to the city, and while riding the subway, a woman is assaulted. She begs for his help, and there's evident indecision in his eyes. A man who is kind at his core, grappling with his determination to not get involved. He tries to turn away, but can't. It's just not in his nature.
Leave her alone.
Reminds me of that scene in the 2008 Incredible Hulk. He too was trying not to get involved, but just couldn't resist helping someone in need. Banner gets the blame for the crime and locked up. Last movie, McGee showed up to investigate like usual. Despite his renewed interest in catching the Hulk, he makes no appearance here, and Banner is lucky as hell for it. Stuck in jail, the jig would have been up for sure had McGee come snooping. No convenient doppelganger this time. Banner is content to remain in jail for the rest of his days.
I can go to work on getting you out of here.
Maybe I belong in a cage.
He's given up on the prospect of a cure, of a normal life, and is satisfied to simply waste away. While locked up, Banner has a nightmare of hulking out in the middle of a courtroom. In the dream, Hulk is noticeably crueler and more violent than in reality. This gives us insight into how Banner views Hulk, and how it hasn't really changed since the pilot.
And we have further proof that the creature won't kill.
Hasn't killed.
Won't kill, David.
This reminds me of the shaving dream from Ang Lee's Hulk. There too, Hulk is more malicious than in reality. Both give insight into Banner's understanding of the Hulk, and how that differs from the truth. Banner's fear of the Hulk's uncontrollable nature, and his capability to hurt people, manifests in this nightmare scenario, despite Hulk's actual heroic nature. And it's this fear that has driven him into inaction. He's come to view himself in only his capacity for harm, and it's this mentality that Daredevil pulls him out of. During their first meeting, Murdock points out that Banner doesn't care about anyone or anything anymore. Or does he? Banner went out of his way to help the woman on the train, which is proof enough he still cares, despite what he tells himself. Some of the old Banner shines through. After Murdock reveals himself as Daredevil and explains the corruption he's fighting against, Banner finally agrees to get involved.
I almost turned away from her once. So I'll do what I can before I leave. For her. And for you.
Banner sees someone who's also been dealt a bad hand by life, yet refuses to give up. He can still help people, so he will. This inspires Banner to do the same. After Daredevil gets ass-blasted by Fisk, Banner steps up as a doctor again, for the first time in a long time. He may be cursed, but he still has the power to help others. He's more than his monster.
You doctors know very little about radiation.
I happen to know a lot about it.
Can my sight be restored?
No.
Well, he's trying at least. The movie ends with Banner's hope and purpose renewed.
No, I'm going to start using my skills as a scientist and a doctor. Parts of me that I've been neglecting lately.
If you like what you've seen so far, consider becoming a channel member. You get access to custom emojis, members-only polls, members-only videos, and end-of-video shoutouts. Now back to the video. This is the live-action debut of Daredevil. This is actually the first appearance of his now famous black suit design, predating A Man Without Fear by about 4 years. Although, I suspect they designed the suit this way more for budget than for style, but it works well in its simplicity. It's an all-black skin suit. There isn't much room to go wrong. In the comics, Daredevil dwells in Hell's Kitchen, but here the city remains unnamed. I guess they couldn't afford the rights to New York City or something. I don't know. Or maybe they couldn't afford the rights to a fight choreographer, because it's pretty rough. While the show's choreography was never anything to write home about, it's noticeably lacking when it comes to Daredevil, a character that's meant to be a proficient martial artist. Movement is slow and clumsy. You get a lot of gooners just standing around, waiting for their turn to goon. This hallway fight is certainly not this hallway fight. Calling it awkward would be putting it lightly. The movie succeeds much better at depicting Daredevil's other characteristics. His cleverness, for one. He needs to find Banner after his accidental jailbreak, but only has a vague description of where he's staying.
Some rundown building in the shadow of that tall, near downtown.
Daredevil pinpoints his location by recreating the shadow of the landmark Banner mentioned and seeing what buildings fall under it, even replicating the position of the sun. He then uses this information to further narrow it down to the exact building. Despite taking some leaps in logic, it's a pretty impressive piece of writing, and greatly conveys an important aspect of Daredevil's character. Another of his characteristics that's well fleshed out is his aversion to being seen as helpless. It's set up early on in the context of his blindness.
It's okay, Al.
He wants to be capable of helping others, so he doesn't want to seem powerless himself. This extends to his superheroing. When he's tricked and severely injured by Fisk, he loses confidence in himself and shuts his friends out of his life. He feels helpless and doesn't want others to see him that way. It takes Banner to talk him out of this destructive mindset, to remind him of the same lesson Murdock taught him.
Look at what you can do. You're forgetting that.
Like with Thor in Returns, this was meant to be a backdoor pilot for a Daredevil series. And also like Thor, it didn't pan out. I'm not sure why neither did. As far as I can tell, both TV movies got good ratings, so I would assume there was interest. Just like Thor, Banner is meant to parallel with Daredevil. When Murdock was a kid, he pushed an old man out of the way of a truck. In the process, his eyes got covered in a radioactive liquid. It blinded him, but enhanced his other senses. What he doesn't mention is that the ooze then fell into the sewer and mutated a rat and 4 turtles. But that's neither here nor there. Feeling a kinship with Murdoch, Banner is convinced to help rescue the woman Fisk kidnapped.
Because of my sad story, radiation poisoning, and now you feel sympathy for me?
No. I feel somehow we're alike.
A radiation-related accident caused Murdoch to suffer dire consequences. Despite his condition, he continued to do his best to help others. It's a story that resonates with Banner, because it's his story. Or at least, it was, until he became a sad sack of shit. Seeing Murdoch continue to help people inspires Banner to get off his ass and do the same.
Radiation took your sight, but look at the gifts it gave you. I understand because I forgot. I have gifts too. I have something to contribute.
This development works well. Except, just like in Returns, the parallel is left incomplete. The radiation that cursed Murdoch also gave him unique abilities he uses to help others. The radiation that cursed Banner gave him unique abilities too, but he never considers deliberately using them for good. In Returns, Thor told Banner to bring out the Hulk to fight some bad guys. Banner insisted that's not something he does on purpose, but the movie needed him to, so a scenario immediately contrived itself to force him to Hulk out. It feels like the next logical step is for Banner to deliberately transform, to choose to use Hulk to help someone. Like what happens in the 2008 Incredible Hulk movie. Abomination is destroying Harlem, so Bruce intentionally hulks out to stop him. But even by the end of Death, this Banner never once considers it. The lesson Banner does take is that he shouldn't neglect his skills as a doctor and a scientist, which is all well and good, but not what the parallel was logically building towards. Along with Daredevil, Trial also has Stan Lee's live-action cameo debut.
The idea was the jurors were supposed to jump out of the box and run away in fear. I started to jump. He said, "No, you're not a stunt man. You can't jump. We got to put a stunt man in there to jump out of the box." I said, "Bill, it's this high off the ground. I could step out of the box." I was so mad. I want to jump out of the box. Wouldn't let me do it.
Co-creator of the Hulk, Jack Kirby, actually cameoed back in Season 2. Speaking of the comics, the movie plays into the stereotypes of comic book adaptations. In places, the dialogue is deliberately cornier.
You're gonna tell us where the woman is, or I'll punch your heart out.
See what I mean?
No, I don't see it all. Intermission. Don't hurt anybody, Turk. Be very good. Read a book.
Yes, very persuasive. I'm sure that line's convinced many a ne'er-do-well to turn over a new leaf. Murdoch is characterized as kind of a jokester.
Kyle! Nice suit. Thanks. You know, it's funny you should mention that, 'cause I got a really good deal. Very funny.
So I suppose this dialogue isn't entirely out of nowhere, but it's still really cringe, and not in line with how the series' dialogue was typically written. Wilson Fisk, who makes his live-action debut, is depicted as a goofy and over-the-top villain. For one, he's got this weird video fixation.
The camera sees everything. It is not distracted.
We will have the destruction of him on video. I will show them the death of my enemy in slow motion. Are you an actress, Miss Mendez?
I was hoping you were an actress. We have a role for you. It is a fine part.
Do you know your part?
This will be the greatest performance of your life.
Lights. Camera. Sound. I want this on the giant screen. I don't want our guests to miss a moment of it.
I'm not sure what that's about. Is it from the comics? His goal is to film his men killing Daredevil, then show the footage to the other crime bosses, so they'll agree to put him in charge of all their operations. But he doesn't need to be a cinephile to accomplish this. He's also got a dark and moody lair, perfect for villainous monologues.
I want the Mendez woman taken alive. Daredevil will come after her. And then we will have him. We will have the destruction of him on video. Then when the other heads of organized crime gather here, I will show them the death of my enemy in slow motion. They will agree to my plans. I want you to reflect on the importance of success this time. I want you to sleep on it. I want this on the giant screen. I don't want our guests to miss a moment of it. I want them to see how we solve our problems. Then they will agree to link our networks. A national corporation with Me at the control. As it should be. Touching. Very, very, very touching. What are you doing the rest of your life? Say 24 hours. An octopus cannot be only legs, gentlemen. It needs a head, an engineer, if you will. I humbly submit myself for the post of manager of all our tentacles. And the following video is my resume.
Let him rot! Why should we care?
And the movie ends with him escaping in a flying car that was in no way set up. This thing straight comes out of nowhere. Oh, and the hammy acting. He's chewing up so much scenery, it's a wonder there's any left to film in. I just can't take this character seriously. I suppose this is why Kenneth Johnson, producer, director, writer of the show, was so averse to introducing stuff from the comics. He always wanted the show to remain adult and serious, and identified comics with the camp and the silly. Adapting comic book material doesn't mean you can't treat it earnestly, but Bill Bixby, who directed Trial, and Gerald DePego, the writer, evidently thought different. Thus we have the movie's cornier aspects. Now that I recall, wasn't Bixby also against the show being all comic booky?
We sent him the script, his agent gave it to him, and Bix read it and called me the next day and came over and said, "Is this what we're gonna do?" And I said, "Yeah, are we really gonna do this? Is it gonna be this drama? Is it gonna be like this excitement, this real human stuff?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Not gonna be all comic booky." I said, No.
Well, now he's directing, and it's the most comic booky it's ever been. I wonder why that is. Did he have a change of heart? In Death of the Incredible Hulk, Banner poses as a simple-minded janitor.
Do you like working outside today?
I like the weather. Inside there isn't any. Is your time tomorrow?
All the while secretly helping the scientist, Dr. Pratt, with his gene manipulation research. He pulls a Good Will Hunting 7 years before Good Will Hunting. Either way, Banner follows the cardinal rule.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
But I'm not sure why he's putting on this act. I guess it helps disguise that he's secretly helping Dr. Pratt, but he does it even outside of work, to the extent that he deliberately walks into a mugging. What's the point? Regardless, when Banner is discovered by Dr. Pratt, he agrees to help him, since his research might finally be able to cure him. Meanwhile, the spy Yasmin is tasked with stealing the doctor's secrets. Like the previous movies, Death parallels Banner with another character, but in this case, it works a lot better. Yasmin is a spy, trained since she was 14 to lie, cheat, and steal. She's a master of disguise and has learned how to manipulate people to get what she wants. She needs to steal the doctor's secrets, because it's believed they hold the key to creating super soldiers, and they want to sell it to the highest bidder. Despite all this, Yasmin isn't a bad person at heart. She's following her employer's orders because they're keeping her sister hostage. At least she believes so. But she's no killer. That's a line she refuses to cross. In an altercation with Dr. Pratt, she accidentally knocks him out and starts a fire. Before grabbing what she came for, she makes sure to drag him to safety. Deep down, she cares. Both Yasmin and Banner just want to live normal lives, yet circumstances beyond their control trap them in cycles of turmoil and trauma. They struggle with the harm they cause wherever they go, while still being kind at heart.
Don't be afraid to hold me.
I'm not afraid. It's just I haven't had that kind of life for a long, long time.
Yes, a long time. Some people live all their lives like this.
Lucky.
Their similarities cause them to connect and strike up a romance. They decide to leave everyone and everything behind, to run away, just the two of them. Hold the phone. This is starting to sound suspiciously familiar. Banner and a femme fatale spy falling in love and planning to run away together? Huh, I guess his romance with Black Widow in Age of Ultron isn't so unprecedented after all. Anyway, given that Death is the last installment of this franchise, Yasmin ends up being Banner's final love interest. 5 seasons, 3 movies, and still no Betty.
Hi, Betty.
What the fuck?
Oh my god. The femme fatale spy just knocked out Betty and took her place. The parallels don't end. The relationships Banner builds in this movie prove to be much more significant than in Returns or Trial, as they are crucial to the ultimate climax of his character. Banner works with Dr. Pratt and his wife to complete his research and develop a cure. They become fast friends, and I mean really fast. We basically have one montage to establish that they've become as close as family.
David, begin.
God bless you, son.
My only family is you and Amy. There's no one else.
It was like having a son after all, Amy. That's what he said about you.
That's not to say they don't have chemistry. They certainly do, and I can buy they become friends. But there's simply not enough development for where the movie wants their relationship to be.
It's not for the secrets that are locked inside your brain. That's not why I'm here. It's for me. It's for family, Ronald. my only family. I keep losing the people I love, the people who love me. So I'm being selfish. I need you in this world.
And then there's Yasmin. She and Banner first exchange dialogue about 50 minutes into the movie, and share maybe 2 conversations before they fall headfirst in love. The movie insists upon the depths of these relationships to heighten the emotions of the climax. Spoiler alert, Banner fucking dies, and it's these characters that are with him at the end. The movie wants this moment to be as meaningful as possible, so it needs these characters to be more than glorified acquaintances. But it doesn't really work. Banner hasn't known these people long enough, and he basically just began his relationship with Yasmin. That's not to say his death has no emotional weight, just that these new bonds don't contribute to it as much as the movie would wish. Speaking of his tragic end, we got foreshadowing in Trial about Banner finally settling down, finally reaching the end of his journey.
Can't just keep moving on, you gotta stop somewhere.
The beginning of death further contributes to this foreshadowing, though not in such a positive way.
David, are you telling me that this creature cannot die?
If the damage were catastrophic, maybe. Maybe.
You know the risks better than anyone,
All the risks are worth it.
including death.
Yes.
He's also described as a ghost.
You see this person's helping you?
Every step of the way, like an invisible partner.
Ronnie, it's a ghost.
During his second Hulk-out, Banner recalls the events of the pilot, as if to bring the story full circle by highlighting how it all began, while driving towards an inevitable end. A similar effect is captured when Banner watches footage of himself transforming for the first time.
I've never seen it before.
Banner receives a kind of closure right before reaching the climax of his character's journey, to try and make this a more satisfying conclusion. And speaking of the grand finale, 12 years after Banner was first bombarded by gamma radiation, he's finally rid of the Hulk. When Dr. Pratt and his wife are kidnapped, Banner and Yasmin are forced to put their plans for a normal life on hold to save them. They get them both out, but Yasmin is chased down by a plane. Worried for her, Banner hulks out. He attacks the plane and hops on board, saving her. Trying to kill him, the villain accidentally blows up the plane, flinging Hulk to his demise. Laying on the ground, dying, Hulk reverts back to Banner. Yasmin and the Pratts surround him in his final moments. Thematically, the movie alludes to the idea of freedom.
Tomorrow night you'll be free if it works.
Free of him forever. It's hard to imagine.
I'm sorry he didn't free you.
At the end, this theme reaches its conclusion.
David, don't. Don't die. We could be free now.
Yasmin, I am free.
As was the tragic nature of his life, Banner gets what he wants, but it comes at the ultimate cost. He's finally free of his curse. The Hulk is gone. Banner no longer has to run, to hide, to suffer. He can finally be at peace, but only in death. In a way, this feels like the only possible outcome, the only way for Banner's curse to end. Throughout the movie, Banner's wish for a normal life is treated as something unreal and illusory. It's only a dream. He can never truly grasp it.
It's okay. We're only dreaming.
I'll join you there when this is over.
No, you won't. We were just dreaming anyway.
It's a bittersweet, yet somehow fitting conclusion to the character. The emotional impact of the scene is lessened by some goofy editing choices. It's awkward and distracting when it didn't need to be. Despite this, the moment still works well, largely due to its great sound design. It all goes quiet, and a somber song comes in. The song is called And Something Ends by Chris Ford. Its lyrics are about something new beginning, while at the same time something else comes to an end. Perhaps it refers to Yasmin and Banner. Yasmin's life is saved, and she finally has her chance at normalcy, but it comes at the cost of Banner's life. For something to begin, something else must end. There were plans for a fourth movie, The Revenge of the Incredible Hulk. According to the writer, Gerald DePego, it would have seen Banner resurrected and rid of the Hulk, but forced by villains to create more Hulk-like beings. The climax would have seen Banner turn himself back into the Hulk to stop them. This actually might have fulfilled the arc that Returns and Trial seem to set up. Returns introduces the idea of coming to understand your alter ego, and potentially gaining more control this way. Trial sets up the idea of utilizing the unique gifts that come with your curse to help people. If Banner were put in a dire situation, and willingly chose to embrace Hulk as a solution, We could have finally seen meaningful development of the Banner-Hulk dynamic. Sadly, that never happened. Revenge was cancelled due to Death's low ratings. Regardless, a sequel would soon prove impossible. Death released in 1990. In 1991, Bixby was diagnosed with cancer, and in 1993, he sadly passed away. For better or for worse, this is how his Banner story concludes. It stayed true to the tragic nature of the character to the very end. The Incredible Hulk TV movies have some issues. In general, the writing's not nearly as tight as the show, with plot holes and conveniences galore. You have contrived fights, weak excuses to make Banner Hulk out, incompetent villains, wild coincidences, and leaps in logic. For the first time, spectacle is prioritized over quality writing, and that's a shame. A lot of the action's not even that good. A good thing the TV movies do provide is a glimpse into the show that could have been. Had it not endeavored to be as uncomic booky as possible, it could have had Banner and Hulk interact with all sorts of interesting Marvel characters. And if returns and trial are anything to go by, it could have worked well, giving us well-rounded characters with meaningful journeys. But hopefully without all the hammy acting and corny one-liners.
What's an all-American girl like you doing with a geek like this?
For the most part, Banner's characterization remains as consistent and as strong as the show. He is concerned with helping others, even to his own detriment, surrendering cures, running into danger, and even giving up his own life to save lives. And in Trial, we're presented a new facet of his character, a version of Banner on the cusp of hopelessness, and what it takes to bring him back from the brink. After the pilot, Banner remained a fairly static character. He was the same person from the beginning to the conclusion of each episode. The TV movies provide him some meaningful development, even if it wasn't taken to its logical endpoint. The movies also give us a definitive conclusion for the character, something sorely missing in a lot of superhero media nowadays. Not only does this version of Banner get a grand finale, but it comes with its fair share of meaning, pathos, and thematic weight. Goodbye, David Banner, and goodbye, Bill Bixby. Thanks for watching. Consider becoming a channel member. You get access to custom emojis, members-only polls, members-only videos, and end-of-video shoutouts. Till next time.
Not yet. Hi. Close the door. End of series.